Hi, everybody. It's Stacy from LoveHealth.us. And today we're going to talk about something that's helped me take a few more risks in my life. What people think of you is none of your business. Woohoo! Thank goodness for that. So, this little saying that my health coach and spiritual teacher, Christine, taught me has really been empowering and helpful. What people think of me is none of my business. And that's a great thing to say to people. If you feel like you're getting unsolicited advice about something you're doing, you can say, "Oh, thank you for sharing. But what you think of me is none of my business." Boy, that'll throw people for a loop. It kind of makes them think for a second, like, what? What did they say? So, um, the thing is, I made my first video in a long time the other day, and it was kind of, I guess, maybe some controversial topic. So after I made it, I was just second guessing myself so much, like, should I have done that? And, worrying about offending people, or did I say the right thing? And then it kind of started thinking to myself, well, my topic was trying to tell people, like, let's not shame and guilt people in order to, change their behavior. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm shaming and guilting people by making this video about shaming and guilting. And then I was like, maybe I should just delete it. And then I had a nightmare that I actually made a video and I put something in it that I totally regretted. And I'm like, what? Why would I say that? That was terrible. I need to delete this video right away off my YouTube account. And of course, in a nightmare, you can't do what you need to do, right? So I couldn't get to it and I couldn't delete it. And I was like, woke up like, oh, phew, it was just a dream. But that's how much it's in your psyche sometimes, that when you take a risk and do something different, that it's really hard for your body to do that. And it's hard for you emotionally. Most blocks aren't like a physical block, it's an emotional block to doing something different and new and exciting, or something that you want to share with the world that you're like, oh, I'm too embarrassed, I'm too shy, I'm not good enough. Well, you have to start putting it out there and say, yeah, I am good enough. Because remember when you were a kid and like every picture you drew was covering the refrigerator or the walls of your room, or you were hanging up and you were proud of everything you drew, and now it's like, oh, you're drawing so much better now, but you don't want anyone to see your art. And you can get better at it as you just practice and practice if you do it. But I think sometimes when you put it out there and share it with the world, it helps you, motivates you to do even better and work on it even more, right? Because we can always make a better piece of art and a better video. But if I wait until it's perfect, until what I consider perfect, then I'm never going to do it. Even though I'm trying to do these without all these editing, and this is like my fourth attempt to get this right. Um, so even for me, I have a level of quality and expectation for myself. And of course, I want to put out quality work. But if I think it's quality, that's enough. No one else has to think that. So one thing that is very helpful when you're trying to take new risks in your life, but you find yourself fighting, like the blocks for me are pretty intense, because like I say, I have this fear and doubt. Plus was just procrastinating forever to get it done. I've been working on this one for 3 days now. This is my third day trying to get this recorded nicely, but I am going to get it done and I am going to pull it off, but I have to keep pushing myself, because I'll say, oh, let me do this first. Let me do that first. And after I do that, then I'll get to it. But those are kind of just the blocks that I'm fighting through, because my neural pathways aren't used to this. Our neural pathways keep us alive by working in patterns, and by being, working with what's familiar. So in caveman days, we had familiar places that we knew how to get to, where our home base was, and how to go into the forest to this area or that area and come back safely and find our way. So all that keeps us safe, these patterns in life, what time we get up in the morning, and what time we go hunting and gathering, or what time we go to work, and what time we go to bed. But in spy movies, that's also how the bad guy gets the good guy, or vice versa, right? One guy gets the other guy because they follow their patterns. They say, I know what time this guy wakes up. I know what time he brushes his teeth. I know when he goes to bed every night. I know when he goes to work. I know where he stops to get his coffee. We are like 90% of our day is habitual. And the problem with that, even though it's keeping us safe and it's very comforting and very reassuring and doesn't cause a lot of anxiety, because anything new, even going to a friend's birthday party, maybe there's people there you haven't seen in a long time, going to a relative's house for a holiday can bring up anxiety, even though you've done it every year for 12, 14, 22 years. You're going to see people, so-and-so is going to say something about your height, your weight, your hair, your clothes, your job, your school you chose, your grades, your report card, and you're going to just be like, oh, I can't, even that can cause anxiety, because it's something different you don't do every day. So doing something habitual and regularly, regular in our patterns keeps us feeling calm and happy. But makes it harder to take risks. So Marissa Peer, who also does some great quote of the day shows with Sean Croxton's quote of the day show, she says to do things that are different, as simple as brushing your teeth with the left hand, or while you're brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand, or while you're brushing your teeth, stand on one foot, or get dressed and stuff before you make your coffee instead of making your coffee first in the morning, or take a different route to work that day, or take a walk in the morning instead of after work, or something. Anything that you can kind of mix up and do differently will help create new neural pathways that tell your body, hey, look at all this new strange behavior that doesn't fit in the patterns I expect, but I'm still safe. Oh, yay. Now I can take more risks and more risks and more risks and still feel safe and not feel as high of a level of anxiety building up, because you're kind of baby stepping that way and getting your neural pathways ready for something new. And besides, doing this doesn't mean I'm not nervous or worried about what other people will think. It's that I have those worries and fears, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's courage, is according to Mark Twain, right? Mark Twain's quote was that courage isn't a lack of fear, but being afraid and doing it anyway. And I like John Wayne's twist on it, which is courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. Get on that horse and ride. If you fall off that horse, get back on too, because maybe you'll do it and it's a flop. Maybe I'll get like 12 thumbs downs and one thumb up and everyone will be like, oh, you stink. But then I'm going to be like, all right, maybe that will motivate me to do it better next time. But what they think of me shouldn't stop me from reaching my goals and dreams, right? And if I have to block that out, that's fine. On my last video, I accidentally didn't have comments on, and then I had so much anxiety and worry about what I had posted that I'm like, good. Now I don't have to worry about that. And maybe this time I can baby step it up and put comments on, because I'd love to start a dialogue and community conversation about these topics. But, that's up to my comfort level. If I'm not ready for that yet, that's okay. Right. So let's see. I just wanted to look at my notes. Oh, yeah. So if you think like, one thing you have to remember too that really helps me is there's an audience for everybody. There's 7 billion people on this planet. And like, people like the strangest stuff, and they're always looking for new and interesting, strange stuff to like. The strangest art that can be out there. My friend's daughter does some art, and some of it's really dark and edgy and really interesting. And sometimes, it would be unattractive to somebody else's eye, but I think it's really cool and awesome, and I love it. So another example of this is this movie called Eraserhead, by, did I write his name down? I can't remember his name, but anyway, famous director and writer and all that. And David Lynch, and he does this movie, but I mean, I see and I respect the fact that it's really weird and really out there and really artistic. And any film student would cringe right now to say to me, what do you mean you hated that movie? And it's not that I hated it. I couldn't watch it ever again, because it makes you very uncomfortable. The music is like, it's loud, screeching sounds and bad sounds to make you feel uncomfortable. And the whole storyline is just absolutely bizarre. And the people's behavior is so bizarre. It just keeps you on edge the whole time. But people like that. They're like, whoa, this is a different type of movie I've never seen before. And this has got a cult following, this movie. And it's probably studied in every film school that ever is on the planet. So it just goes to show you something that I find totally weird. And I couldn't watch again, but I'm glad I watched it once to experience it. Other people absolutely love, like Jackson Pollock's work. I love his artwork, but it's abstract random, and his drip paintings he's famous for. And people think I can do that, and this is not art, and how is this art? Well, you might be able to do it, but you didn't, and he did, and people loved it. People love it. His artwork is worth millions for drip paintings and stuff that he came up with that no one ever did before, because it was new and it was exciting and it was different. And it's not for everybody, but you can find an audience that will like your work. My husband always says that he hopes someday his paintings are appreciated someday by other people, but he paints his art for himself. And that's, who you're really doing it for. But if you really do want an audience, you can find one, definitely. So, let me just go to my next notes here. Oh yeah. Like, how you go to someone's house and you'll see their decor and their decorations, and you think it's tacky, or you think there's a tchotchke that you don't like around, and people, bought all these things in the house, and that you think are not your taste, but they paid money for those items. They bought those items, and those items probably sold on a massive scale to other people too. So who's to say whose perception is right on what's tacky or not tacky or ugly or fashionable, right? So there is an audience for everyone. There are millions of videos on YouTube because people always want something new and different. So, you know, put it out there. So some messages I was getting since I was having all this doubt and fear was speak your truth. I kept hearing this from different people. And then even on the quote of the day show, it came up again to do it anyway and take a chance. So here's 3 different quote of the day shows that I'll share in the comments from Sean Croxton. And this guy, Trent Shelton, talked about how he kept getting advice. You don't talk about God enough. You talk about God too much. You're not passionate enough. You're too passionate when you talk. And he was like, I don't even know what to do now because everyone wants me to do something different. And it's like, well, it's my career. I'm going to do it the way I want. And Charlie Day said the same thing. Star of Sunny in Philadelphia. You'll love this talk, especially if you like him and his show. And he's a comedian, so it's really funny. But he said, I didn't do what society expected of me. And if I want to write a show with putting mittens on kittens, I do it. Right? Let your freak flag fly and be really weird and different. And someone's going to like that. Or just be, like a traditional cooking show or something. And don't be afraid to put it out there. I have a couple of students who have a cooking blog now. It's really cool. They made their own little cooking blog and website, and they're putting it out there and they share it. And Bob Proctor will say, if you want to be free, if I want to be free, I got to be me. Not the me you want me to be, not the me my parents want me to be, or my kids want me to be, or my spouse wants me to be. If I want to be free, I got to be me. And that's another great quote of the day show that you can listen to. So the other piece of advice Sean Croxton will give you that we've talked about in class Money Mind Academy and Richlet Society, and Sean is like one of my mentor and teacher. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but his show, Quote of the Day show, is a really great place for you to start if you want to start kind of changing your mindset, because you got to change your neural pathways from negativity to positivity, from self-defeat and doubt and judgment to, encouragement and hope and faith and risk-taking. But one thing he says is, don't tell anybody. If you're afraid that people's judgment will keep you from doing it, then don't tell anybody. If you have one trusted confidant that you could share with and get feedback from, not criticism, because this constructive criticism is baloney. No such thing as constructive criticism. Feedback's where it's at, people. I really like this about your video you're making, Stacy, but I couldn't really hear you. You got to fix the volume issue. Well, that's important for me to know, right? I really liked it, but something, there's noises in the background that were distracting, or your lighting was bad, or, that one quote you said, this is a trusted friend or confidant would tell me, not someone that's going to rip it apart. And then I don't want to do it at all. But we must be careful, because sometimes we ask for advice because we don't want to do it. We're looking for an excuse to crush our own dreams, because we're in charge of ourselves. No one can control our dreams and crush them if we don't let them. Right? So don't tell anybody if you're afraid they're going to talk you out of it or try to talk you out of it. Even something like one of my friends recently moved to California, and she ended up moving back to her hometown. But I mean, good for her for taking a risk, and sure, she took a lot of flack from people about making that choice, but you talk to who you want to talk to about it, and you say to people, well, that's nice. Thanks for sharing, but I'm going to do it anyway, or you just don't tell them, and then they can't criticize. So like even my videos, I post them in certain Facebook groups and on Instagram and stuff, and on my Love Health Facebook and stuff like that. But I don't always just send them to my family members who I know we don't see we don't see things the same way, because they're not my audience, and that's okay. I love them anyway, and they love me, but they don't have to be, telling me that I'm the best ever and they love my videos and it inspires them. If it doesn't, if it's not your cup of soup, it's not your cup of soup, and that's all right. Right? That's cool. So let me stop the share. Just to wrap it up, I'm going to give you like my last tidbit here. Oh yeah, I think I said this. So if you're striving for perfection, you're not going to put it out there. So better to put it out and take a risk that maybe it's not what you deem to be perfect, but it's pretty good and you're pretty happy with it, then go for it. Put it out there, because you're only going to get better and better. And putting something out there is better than waiting for this perfection and not putting anything out there at all, ever. right? Because remember, what people think of you is none of your business. And what they think of your art or your sharing of your gifts is none of their business. And what you want to do for a living or where you want to live or how you want to dress, that's up to you, right? So if you need some Stacy love, Stacy LoveHealth at gmail.com. Love your brothers and sisters, everybody. Love and peace. Love you, mean it. LoveHealth.us.